So, as we know, Mandarin is a tonal language. So, you have the first tone second tone third tone and fourth tone So, this is quite important in Chinese because the pronunciation, how it works is there's really only a set number of different ways to pronounce characters. So, what I mean by this is there's a lot of replication of the same pronunciation of a character, but maybe it's a different tone. For example, I like to give this example. For example, ma for mama for mother, and then we have ma for like a type of plant, and ma is for horse, and ma is to scold someone. So they kind of all sound similar, but they have a different tone. So when you're speaking, you could be saying like horse rather than mother, and you could probably offend someone if you're saying the wrong thing.
Probably.
So it's really important to get the tones right, and that's why I was so hung up upon, perfecting my pronunciation at the start rather than leaving it way too late when it's hard to change.
And it's so interesting because I've heard so much about the different tones and I've tried to imitate them, but it's like really hard to do that. How did you ace this? How did you train yourself with those tones? Like to listen to them, like to hear properly which one it is, and also to reproduce them.
So the first thing, it's really important to look at like a tonal chart. There's a lot of charts on Google. You can just search, Mandarin pronunciation chart, and you can actually see how the pitch changes over the course of when you're saying it. So I would practice like those charts quite a lot when I started learning, but then it's really just the longer that you or the more that you listen to things, the easier it is to pick up that tone. So, I would be listening to a lot of podcasts and also producing the sounds. In terms of that, it's really important to read aloud. So, if I was reading like graded readers or even just doing textbook exercises, I would read everything aloud to practice the tones in that way. Like, I wouldn't just sit there and, say it in my head. That's not really useful. You need to produce it and read everything aloud. So that was my main strategy.
And in the beginning, you probably did not understand yet like what the podcasts were about. Did you just listen to them to hear the tones without knowing what they were talking about, or how did it work?
Um, I think obviously you start with the tonal charts, and then once you have those tones, like the basic idea of how to pronounce them, learned, then you can begin with basic podcasts. But I kind of have a controversial thing when it comes to, listening to podcasts and watching movies, that kind of thing. I left that until quite late in my journey of learning Chinese. Not late, but after at least a year or two, not to overwhelm myself. So I would just listen to really basic podcasts or just YouTube videos, how to learn Chinese, just very simple things. Because I feel like if you're a beginner and you're listening to, native like podcasts, you're just going to be too overwhelmed. So mostly my practice with tones it came from, being taught by my teacher and looking at the tonal charts and going through the exercises. I feel like it doesn't take, maybe I'm saying, oh, it's easy, it's fine. But I'm comparing this to Cantonese, which I've just started learning. And that's even worse. They have
Oh
six
God.
and in some cases 9 tones, and it's
9?
really hard to distinguish. Yeah, I've heard there's 9. Some people say 6. I don't know why there's 9.
I'm gonna be
I think
honest.
in most cases.
When I was looking at the tone charts for Mandarin, I thought, okay, like these 4 tones make sense. They're distinct. There's no way there's gonna be more ways to talk, right? No, no. Cantonese is back in the corner, be like, oh boy, you had nothing yet.
Exactly. So now I think, oh, Mandarin tones are so easy. It's fine.
There's always
I
something.
think so.
I was gonna just say, like, there's always something harder. That's like one of the things that we kind of figured out on this podcast. Every time someone be like, oh, like, I had a hard time doing this sort of task, but there's always worse. There's always worse. There's always worse. It never ends.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it becomes a little bit scary. But I think there's also kind of like the beauty of languages because you can kind of like always better yourself. There's no like a plateau. Yes, you can become professionally sound on one language. Well, you pick up another one. Who's stopping you? Nobody's stopping you, really. Nobody. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, you started putting a lot of effort into like your own study. You took a very structured, like structured way of learning, for what I gathered, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So when I was starting out, as I said, I was doing this during high school. So it was more like an elective. It didn't really contribute to my score, but I was just doing it out of interest. But the way that it worked was I was matched up with like a school in Melbourne, and it was like distance education. So I had to learn like online. I didn't have classes. It was just pre-recorded lectures or exercises, and then they would print out all of these workbook materials, post them to me. I would complete all the worksheets, post them back to Melbourne. They would grade them. They would post back the graded worksheets, and I was learning like this for 3 years. So it's not probably the quickest way to learn, but I felt like having this structure was really helpful for me.
Those grades were online graded, or were they like in the post?
They were in the post, and
In
I
the
don't know why.
post?
Like, it
Oh,
wasn't.
I did not catch that. Oh my God. In the post? Oh,
I'm not sure why.
I would be scared every single day of my life if that is like the way that I learn, like just looking at the mailbox. It's like, is it coming yet? Oh God damn it. Is it coming yet? Oh God damn it. Is it coming yet? Oh God. So
Yeah.
but it's very impressive that you managed to pull up with all this. Can I say this on the show? Wait a minute, it's my show. If with this bullshit, it's impressive. It's very impressive. But one important thing that happens when you start learning on your own is that you kind of don't necessarily know what habits sort of work best and what are the ones that are kind of hindrance to your learning. So I wanted to ask you, like looking back, like now that you've reached a certain echelon of level, like what early habits do you think matter the most for your long-term progress?
I think in any language, really the main thing that holds you back is like your vocabulary. Because Chinese grammar is quite simple, as we know. It usually follows just the subject, verb, object. There's no verb conjugations like ran, run, running. So all of those things you don't have to worry about. But what really holds you back is your vocabulary. So if you don't understand, one word in a sentence, it's going to be really hard to keep up with a conversation. So I really focused on, in the start, just accumulating more and more vocabulary. And so actually what I would do when I was still living at home with my parents, like my mom would read out the English and I would have to say the Chinese. And although she doesn't speak Chinese, I would be like, okay, is it like, for me, like, W-O, and third tone, this one. And she's like, yeah. So every night I would practice with her. Even though she's not a Chinese native speaker or anything, but she can, correct if I'm actually saying it right, if I have the right tone. But that only works if you have mastered the tones before that. But that was like a big strategy that I was using to really cement my vocabulary. Yeah.
It's definitely one of the big advantages of kind of like doing your own structured work, because some other people that, like, for example, like when I was learning French, I was not like, I was just talking to a teacher, like to a friend of mine that knew French, and in that way you can't really give other people the background of the language, because you don't have the exercise, you don't have a workbook, you don't have a textbook, you don't have a dictionary, you just like kind of ruminate. So it's very nice to be able to involve people that don't necessarily know the language, but they can help you in other ways. It makes the environment better for people to learn languages. Again, as I said in every goddamn episode of the show, everything, like the most important part in language learning is the environment. Even if people don't know your language, but they're happy to help, it's always nice, and it makes the learning more fun and more, let's just say, rewarding in long run.